Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Import Export Hub channel, everybody. Buzz Bogdan here, your not so entertaining host for the next 10 minutes or so. Thanks for joining me, and without practically begging you to hit those small vanity buttons below this video, let's jump into today's topic, in which I will cover 5 products that are worth exporting towards Kenya. And guys, my first one is palm oil and its fractions. So we are talking about heading 1511. And we see that in 2022, Kenya's imports amounted to almost $1.1 billion, with Malaysia, Indonesia, and Cote d'Ivoire as the main partners, which were followed in this top 10 list by other partners like, I don't know, Thailand, India, or South Africa here. This last one managing a not so impressive figure of roughly $130,000. Relative to the growth rate, we see that for the last 5 years, we have a positive 16.5% compound annual growth rate, with Malaysia having a big contribution here, whereas Indonesia, so Kenya's number one partner between 2018 and 2020, had a 21% contraction, with 2022 registering the smallest amount, some $110 million. Guys, I don't know if this has to do with some shifts in terms of trade relations or not, but clearly something is going on between these two partners. I don't know exactly what, so if somebody familiar with this matter is watching this video, please do share with me, with us, your input. Now, drilling down on a year-on-year basis, things are quite volatile, even though we have a positive 9% change relative to 2021, as the $212 million negative change of Indonesia was offset by the positive change coming from Malaysia, Cote d'Ivoire, and Singapore as well, all with impressive figures, even though, let's face it, both Cote d'Ivoire and Singapore are not necessarily the producers, but the exporters. So basically, these two countries are registered as exporters when the statistics are compiled. Anyways, moving now to the main drivers here. Well, it comes as no surprise, guys, to see that crude palm oil was the main one for both Malaysia and Cote d'Ivoire. So we are talking about subheading 151110. Moving now to my second recommendation for you, we have here heading 1001. So we are talking about wheat and mesclun. As with the help of containerization, more and more commodities are being shipped in containers, and wheat is no exception. As we can see here, in 2022, Kenya's imports amounted to $660 million, some 16% more than in the previous year, with Argentina, the Russian Federation, and also Australia as the main partners, which were followed in this top 10 list by others like, I don't know, Lithuania, Ukraine, or I don't know, the United States. This last one managing to export towards Kenya some $713,000. Also, if we're looking at this table, we see that Argentina and the Russian Federation are Kenya's traditional partners with the first and second spot respectively, while the third spot is contested by players from, I don't know, Ukraine, Canada, or Australia. This last one managing to create a strong position beginning with 2021. Now, relative to the year-on-year changes, as I've said previously, we have a positive change, almost $93 million in absolute terms, thanks to the good figures coming from Lithuania, Argentina, and also the Russian Federation, who basically offset the negative figures coming from Canada, Ukraine, or the United States. As for the main driver, well, for both Lithuania and Argentina, guys, we have subheading 100199. So we are talking about wheat and mesclun, excluding, of course, seeds for sowing and durum wheat. Jumping now to my third recommendation, we have here heading 1006, basically another staple food product, but this time we're talking about rice. And from the beginning, we see that the values are much lower than those from my previous recommendation, but still important as we have almost $291 million worth of imports in 2022, which is almost 3% more than in 2021, which translated into some $8 million in absolute terms, with Pakistan here, India, and Tanzania as the main partners, which were followed by others like Thailand, China, or Malawi. This last one managing to export some $24,000, which let's face it, it's negligible. But it made it to the top 10, so I had to include it. Anyways, it looks pretty clear that Pakistan is the main partner for Kenya, while the second spot is contested between India and Tanzania, while other important suppliers of rice, like, I don't know, Thailand or China, had mixed results in this 5-year time frame, and most probably now they are focusing more on export destinations, not so price sensitive. But again, this is my own finding. Relative to the year-on-year changes here, we see that Pakistan and India had the largest absolute positive changes, some $52 million more exports for the former and some $20 million for the latter, thus offsetting the negative performance of Tanzania, who decreased its exports towards Kenya in 2022 with some $76.5 million. As for the main drivers, again, we see a unique driver, and in this case, we're talking about semi-milled or wholly milled rice, whether or not polished or glazed. So we are talking about heading 10063. Moving now, guys, to my fourth recommendation for you. We have here heading 8517. So we are talking about smartphones, and remember, guys, Kenya is home to some 53 million inhabitants, so low-end smartphones represent a very good opportunity. As we can see here, we have some $279 million worth of imports in 2022, mostly from China, of course, almost $160 million, which was followed by the United Arab Emirates, and then we have Hong Kong with almost $18 million worth of exports towards Kenya, and the list continues with countries like Vietnam, Mexico, or Romania. This last one managing to export in 2022 some $2.9 million worth of goods. Now, relative to the compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, we have a 1.6% positive change overall, with good figures both in absolute and relative terms coming from China and the United Arab Emirates, while on a year-on-year basis we have a contraction of 7%. To be almost precise, which in absolute terms translates to some $21.5 million. And my guess is that this is the value around which the imports will stabilize, at least in the short and medium term. If China saw an $18 million increase in 2022, Hong Kong saw a $35 million contraction, and this is a structural shift, if you ask me, and in the coming years, this could be a very good opportunity for countries like Vietnam or India to fill the gap left by Hong Kong. As for the main drivers, well, no surprise here either, as smartphones drove both Chinese and Romanian exports towards Kenya. So we are talking about subheading 851762. And guys, with this recommendation being covered as well, I will move now to my last one, bear with me, which is coming from heading 6309, and we are talking about worn clothing and worn household articles, with some $169.5 million worth of imports in 2022, mostly from China, the United States, and Canada, followed by others like, I don't know, the United Kingdom, Germany, or Australia. This last one managing to export towards Kenya some $2 million worth of goods. As we can see here, the compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years is positive, just 0.28%, so the demand is relatively stable, while on a year-on-year basis, 2022 saw a slight contraction, almost 2%, which translated into some $3.3 million fewer imports. On a country basis, the largest absolute negative changes happened in relation with Pakistan, some $20 million fewer imports from Pakistan, while on the positive side, both China and the United States registered good figures, and we have some $10 million more exports from the former and almost $12 million more exports for the latter. And in US case, guys, I think it's worth following up if these exports will keep the momentum, or I don't know, it's just the effect of the supply spike caused by the 2020 and 2021 frenzy buying, which of course resulted in mountains of worn clothing in the United States. So yeah, it's worth following up. Anyways, guys, with this last recommendation being covered as well, that's it for today. Thank me by hitting those small vanity buttons below this video. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.